Welcome to Sachs Realty's Tuesday Night Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. Each week, we deliver expert information enabling you to make better informed decisions while keeping more money in your pocket. If you're interested in real estate, this is your show. Welcome to our Tuesday Night Podcast. We are live. I have a special guest with me tonight, Stuart Epstein. Welcome back.
Thank you, Todd. Great to be here with you.
You know,
once again,
a little bit before the show, you were talking about people reaching out to you and, calling you from our last episode together. So that's pretty cool. So I know you're helping a lot of people navigate this crazy market that we're in. Stuart is well, go ahead. Tell everybody who you are.
Thanks, Todd. I'm Stuart Epstein. I'm a local mortgage lender here in the state of Maryland. Lend in all 50 states, but a large portion of the business I do is here in my home state. Been in the mortgage business for a little over 20 years and love what I do. Love helping people achieve the dream of home ownership and more than anything, make smart decisions when it comes to financing because it's a big deal. Financing a home is typically the biggest obligation that people take on. And when I'm able to help people make good, smart decisions that are going to impact them for a long time, it's a pretty cool thing.
Well, I told you I wasn't going to let you get off easy tonight, so I want to hammer you on a couple of things. You know that.
I volunteered to be here, so
I love you, man. But I tell you, we got some problems in this business, and you're not the cause of them. But I think last week I went off a little bit. You didn't hear. I think it was like rant 14 or 16 or something. It was pretty up there. But just about, man. I hear so many loan officers now, with their date the rate stuff, and now they're trying to convince people to refinance, and it's not the time. It's not the time to do that. And and the reason, we'll talk about it tonight, but is obvious. I mean, people are refinancing. A lot of people they're doing some type of cash out refi to pay off credit cards and things like that, or roll some debt into it. The sad thing is, credit card interest. I'm stunned at seeing 34.99% credit card interest rate. I mean, they lured people into debt. It's complete insanity what's going on right now. We have such unaffordability. Nobody's doing anything about it. Our leaders are freaking whatever, thumbs up their. We have nobody, really doing much about the situation. We're focusing on all the wrong things, in my opinion, and yet our consumers are in debt to their eyeballs, and now they're being whacked and kicked in the teeth at 34 and 35% finance charges. It is a crime.
I agree. Unsecured credit is it's a problem, for folks who, I always tell my clients, if you can't pay off your credit cards at the end of every month, don't use them. Because you're basically taking your hard-earned money and you're giving it to the credit card companies in interest. You're basically taking your money and just handing it over to people. And I understand that, we have credit available for a reason. Sometimes people fall into hard times. Maybe a large expense comes up that they weren't expecting, and maybe it'll take you a little bit of time to recover. But it's not a good long-term plan living off of credit cards. That's for sure.
It sure isn't. And I see in Brad in the comments here is talking about California Bill 1840, I think it is. And I'm not going to get into the political, nature of the bill and things like that. And but I will say one thing, it's about providing down payment assistance to anybody. I mean, it's not just anybody, but what I'm saying is anytime we're talking about the government now giving money away so that people can, borrow homes, we're supporting home prices where they are. And the problem is that the affordability issue that we have in the country is that we can't afford these home payments And people are struggling. I had somebody reach out today. A small house, $400 a month in electric bills. Somebody in an apartment, almost $150 in electric bill. And we're looking at Jordan Bressler on here. Jordan's been a longtime viewer, commenting. Has said why I pinned his comment. What buying these big houses and we, paying the utility companies where all we're doing is making them rich. So tonight we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about what's going on in the housing market. We're going to cover a little bit of what Stuart is here for. We're going to talk about mortgages, where we think things are going with that, and what's going on. Some statistics on, on mortgages, who's financing these mortgages, where interest rates are, where we think they're going to go. Will it have any impact? We've got a poll, and I think one of the things that we're going to discuss tonight and kind of dive into is, this free money that has been circulating around, whether it's to pay off student debt, whether it's down payment assistance programs, whatever it is. Have they really helped us or have they hurt us? And we know why they do it. And we printed more money in 2 years than we did in 200 years. And we're in worse shape today than we probably have been in 200 years. Certainly since the Great Depression, post World War II, we have more debt in America and such bubble activity that this is not good for anybody. And, what's really not good for the homeowner, because, especially the homeowners that have bought in the last 4 years, because they are really looking at being underwater in the first major asset. A lot of these are first-time buyers. The first major asset that they made. I'm sorry, Joe. Let's go ahead and pull back that poll. So, how do we fix the housing crisis? I'll fix it. I'm not in a position to fix it, but I could fix it. Free money programs and raise taxes. 2% of you. We have 204 votes right now. Love to hear your thoughts on this. If you guys can cruise over, if you're listening, just vote here and let us know what your thoughts are, because I think that we can fix it. The people can fix it. The problem is that, the ones that we're giving our money to fix it, it doesn't seem like they can fix it. So how to fix the housing crisis, free money programs and raise taxes. Well, 2% of you feel that's a good idea. Fed buys mortgage-backed securities. Maybe a lot of people didn't know what that was, but we'll talk about it tonight. And lowers mortgage rates, 5% of you. Let the bubble burst, hovering around 88% right now. Let the bubble burst. And 4% of you don't care. I think a lot of you comment on my videos. It seems like some of the comments that are on there, it definitely seems like, not the majority, but when I read some of the comments, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The housing market's in the slump.
We're starting to see things slow down a little bit, I'd say. Yeah.
I'm going to show you guys like we did. We'll start out with the housing sector. Then we'll dive into mortgage. How's that sound?
Perfect.
All right.
I'm with you.
A couple of weeks ago, I do get a lot of comments a lot of emails from agents throughout the country. And it's interesting because a lot of them are really divided, whether they're going to stay in the business or not. In fact, I don't want to, talk out of school here, but one of our brokers, I may even be listening tonight, is going to challenge and go kind of toe to toe with NAR or the what has transpired. There is there's a big mixed bag of agents and good agents that have been in the business that are really deciding whether they want to stay in the business anymore. I think we're going to see a mass exodus. But I don't really want to talk about that so much tonight. What I really want to get at with that is that a lot of these agents, when I first started talking about the housing market about 2 years ago, showing signs of a buyer's market or a turning of what is really what I consider unsustainable, was the asset prices of houses. and they continued to climb. And a lot of people say, well, Todd, you didn't obviously call it right, or if you keep talking about it, eventually you'll get it right. There really is no right or wrong, other than the fact that there are indicators that I see that are unsustainable. And when we're looking at the fact that people can't afford a home, I don't need much more evidence than that to know that a big change has to happen, especially when we're talking about they can't afford rents. We watch rents go up 30, 40%. In a lot of markets, that's the minimum amount that they went up. We watched some markets go up 70 or 80%. And home prices that went up almost 80% as well in a 2 or 3 year period of time. So when we were already seeing home prices peaking really from 2013, headed north, it really escalated when we hit 2020 for various reasons. And the question is, was that sustainable? The answer is no. And a lot of people were saying that what I was talking about, that looking at the indicators, just affordability factors, listening to the people on the street level, the buyers, a lot of people really doubted it. Agents doubted it. They thought, well, if you don't buy now, I'm thinking that they didn't just tell people that. If you don't buy now, you're going to miss out, which fueled it even more, right? Instead of saying this is insanity, get a home inspection. Don't waive your rights. Well, now we're starting to see where it is, in fact, slowing down. And I have a couple markets here that I want to cover. I'm going to do like I did in the past couple of weeks. I'm going to show you the back end of my MLS because I want you guys to see what we're looking at on a first-hand basis. And I want to show you where home prices are coming down. We just want to preface it with a couple things. Number one, we're in the Maryland or the DMV area. I'm going to show you a couple Maryland zip codes, a couple Virginia, and cover the District of Columbia in DC, where all the money really takes place. Printing takes place, or decisions to print money takes place. And a lot of the government contractors, I'm not knocking you, but you make pretty good money. And, so we're talking about an area that has money to spend. We're talking about an area that has the highest median income in the country, right? And some of the counties that I'm mentioning. Now, there are places in California, obviously, that make a lot more, but let's go ahead and cover this area. So what I've done here is I pulled up a place called Howard County. Now, a couple of weeks ago, when I pulled up the MLS, there were at least one agent in the comments that said basically that I failed to show you the right zip codes, apparently, because I only showed Baltimore County and I think Anne Arundel County, maybe another county. But he said in this comment, well, you didn't show him Howard County and Montgomery County, which are the richest counties in the state of Maryland. Frederick's up there too. But so I said, you know what? Okay, wise guy, I'm going to show you what you see anyway. So what he was really doing was popping off in the comments to try and make me look like I didn't know what I was talking about, or that I was hiding something from you. And in fact, he had the same tools as I'm about to show you right now. He just was too ignorant to talk about it. So, here we go. We're going to pull it up for you. This is Howard County. Now what we're looking at here, guys, is I did 250,000 to $1 million. Now there's really no sense in, showing you what's less than $250,000 because that's not really anything in Howard County. In fact, I don't even know if anything exists under 250,000 that doesn't have a $1,500 HOA, maybe a condo that they give away because their HOA fees or condo fees are so expensive. But I just want to kind of take a look here because what we're looking at here, guys, are the green arrows. Now, there's a couple columns that I want to show you. Number one are green arrows. Number two would be the days on the market, this column right here. And as I had said that, a lot of times their MLS number changes. So agents will play games and they'll change the MLS, take it off the market, cancel it, bring it back on the market with another MLS number and attempt to try and convince you that the house it was just listed. And a lot of what it does is sometimes they'll do that with a price change. And if you're waiting and you have your Zillow or your Realtor.com or the MLS set for a specific search parameter, when somebody takes something off the market and throws it back on the market again, they think they're going to trick you into thinking that a new house just hit the market. So what happens is when you see where these columns are split That's days on the market or collective days on the market. That usually indicates that there's been more than one multiple list number. So what we want to do is we want to just kind of look at these green arrows, and I have this sorted from low to high because these green arrows are going to tell you, how many properties, there's 25 per page, that have experienced a price reduction. Now these up arrows, a lot of the time, in this case, it's not, but a lot of time the price increases mean that they're builders a lot of times, and they're playing their games with their prices and raising the prices, and that really helps to manipulate the price market as well. But when we're looking at this thing right here, you can see right here it says back to active. So probably what happened here was the house was under contract. Maybe the seller had to make some repairs. The deal fell through, and the seller's trying to recoup their repairs, and that could be why they raised the price. But also what I want you guys to look at here is a lot of these price reductions are pretty significant. So you're looking at 430,000. Now the new price is 390. Some people will, play a game and make it $1, things like that. But for the most part, a lot of these price increases, here's 10,000, tend to be quite substantial. Now, just to give you an idea, 455 in Howard County is what we would still consider affordable housing. But I'm not gonna bore you with going through all of these. But what I will tell you is that in Howard County, Maryland, 36.6% of the houses that are on the market right now, active on the market, have had at least one price reduction. Okay. So again, you're looking at days on the market, you're looking at the arrows down, and as we are clicking through here, we're climbing up. So Stuart, what you're seeing pretty much the same thing?
Yeah, I'm seeing houses. The MLS really tells the story, but I am seeing houses sitting a little bit longer. In some areas, there's still very high demand. Some of the popular zip codes that we all know in our market. When a house comes on the market, there can still be competition. But looking at it holistically, I would say that we are starting to see days on the market increase. From my perspective, at least at this point, it's a positive because it's allowing my buyers who I've got pre-approved to have a little bit of a better chance of actually getting an offer accepted without having to your point, waive an inspection, waive an appraisal, cover a gap in potential under appraisal and things like that just to have a shot.
Right. This is Montgomery County for the agent that, posted that I didn't show Howard or Montgomery County. This is Montgomery County. We have 590 houses on the market. 31% of them, almost 1 in 3, have had price reductions. You can see the green arrows going down again, 250 to $1 million. Now, these are areas, when we were talking about, a typical housing market or a buyer's market, or even a neutral market, we're looking at about 6 months of inventory. Though we are still low on inventory, one of the indicators that's showing the weakening market is the fact that there are so many price reductions. If we would just go back a year, we would have houses sitting on the market for a matter of hours, and really not days, not 30 days, not 100 days. And things would have been multiple offers and sold very quickly. So I do want to pull up one more, two more things here. We'll pull up Alexandria City. This is in Virginia. And I'm sorry, you guys. There we go. Alexandria City, Virginia. Again, also a very wealthy area. Alexandria City here, 37%. And Loudoun County, by the way, which includes Leesburg for anybody that knows Northern Virginia, 32% of their houses on the market have had at least one price reduction. So this is Alexandria City. Again, I mean, you can see these green arrows indicating, price reductions as well as days on market are increasing significantly. And then finally, we'll just go and show you guys DC. as promised, because this is an area that is probably the most alarming to me. They have currently 1,512 houses that are in the price market of 250 to 1 million, and 41% of the houses in DC have had price reductions. And we can just kind of advance through here and see as we go up in price what happens to the market. So anyway, for those of you out there that don't think that home prices are coming down, I could sit here and cover the whole country with you. I have in about a week, we have a Lance Lambert video that we're going to push out. Lance worked for Realtor.com. He has his own analytics, housing analytics company called Resi Club. And him and I, we just had a great podcast, a great show where he is showing where home prices are weakening around the country. So just like you said, Stuart, this is a good sign for our buyers, but it's a terrible sign for our sellers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of sellers have, because they had to, and those who were able to, purchased homes with the idea that they would sell their house after the fact because they couldn't get an offer accepted on a house with a contingency. So those with the wherewithal to be able to purchase, and now, maybe 3, 6, 9 months later, they're selling their house. Maybe they're not going to get quite what they thought they were going to get for their house. If there's any, bright side to that, is there's a lot of equity. I think I read earlier today there's $3 trillion in equity nationally.
That's going fast.
But yeah, that'll be depleted. That will be adjusted a little bit. It's not real money until you sell the house, right? So equity is theoretical. But yeah, people are going to have to price their houses. The folks who want to sell and sell quickly are going to have to price their house and price it with a realtor that really knows the market and really is up to date with where things are, right?
Yeah. Take a look at an article real quick. This one's on Yahoo Finance. This is it's relatively new, Saturday, the 31st. 10 housing markets that will plummet in value before the end of 2024. We just, in our Saturday release, Henrik Zeberg, he's an economist. He said that by December, we will really see the recession. And, I think that we're seeing it now. A lot of comments where business owners are commenting and saying that they're slower, than they've been in years. Their business is really tanked. So, unfortunately, I think we're really coming close to this, to where, everybody's going to see the pain. But if we look at 10 markets that will plummet in value before the end of 2024, we can just kind of go through here. San Francisco is one. They're saying that an estimated that home values in the city could drop by 5 to 10%. Ha. The crazy thing is they're starting to talk about it, right? This is New York City, 5 to 8% by the end of the year. Again, these are so low, guys. I can remember in 2005, before the crisis, when the Baltimore Sun newspaper came out and said the overpriced Baltimore housing market. That was it. That's what it took. Things started to really manifest. And I think that what's happening is the mainstream media is either going to start talking about this stuff because it's happening. They can't deny it. The comps are coming down. The price reductions, you can go on Zillow, you could go on Redfin, you can go on any site that you want that's giving you some kind of an estimate, zestimate, whatever you want to call it. They're showing you where values on houses have dropped. So what's happening now is the media is starting to cover it just ever so slightly, 5%, 8%. If they're saying 5 or 8%, we know it's much bigger. Here's Honolulu, 4 to 6%. I have a client that just sold a house to people that moved from Hawaii. They sold their house for like a normal house for $1.5 million or something like that. I mean, the prices in Honolulu are ridiculous. Plus, it's so overcrowded. I don't see 5 to 6%. Miami, 3 to 5%. Who are you kidding? I mean, the fact that they're on the list is telling you right there. But Las Vegas, Another one, 4 to 7%. Las Vegas, Chicago, 2 to 4%. Believe me, we know our friend John that has Y Rent Realty. He was just on last week. Can tell you it's going to be a lot more than that. 3 to 5%. Seattle, Washington, Austin, Texas. Here you go. This I found interesting. Preston said the median listing home price in Austin was $650,000 in May of 24. The most recent median sale price was $567, but that could dip closer to $550 or lower by the end of the year. Well, why didn't they give you the median price in 2022? So they didn't want it to make it look so bad. St. Louis, here you go again. They've made the list, and Washington, D.C., where I just showed you guys that it's 41% price reductions in Washington, D.C., 3 to 5%. Look out. It is going to be way more than that. Is that doom?
Todd, you know that I'm an optimist, and I like to always look at things from an optimist point of view. And I think that everything's about timing. So if you've purchased a home recently and it's just like purchasing stock, or if you look at your retirement account every day, if you're in the market today, or if you've purchased recently and you're going to sell soon, yeah, you might want to be a little bit concerned. I think, from as a lender, my perspective is that, we kind of wanted to see a little bit of a, at least flattening in appreciation, because it was just getting out of hand to the point where our buyers are tapping out. They just can't afford to purchase anymore, and not just home prices themselves, but all the ancillary costs, energy costs, insurance costs. We've talked a lot about insurance recently, and a lot of folks, their insurance premiums have doubled, this last go round. When they got their renewal this year, my premiums on my house went up 25-30%, and I've never filed a claim. My car insurance went up. Everything cost more. So it's not, it's obviously we need something to give for people to sustain.
We talk about homeowner insurance. We have a CBS News article right here. Homeowner insurance costs are going through the roof. No pun intended. Florida resident Sam Weitzner and his wife have been similarly shocked since buying their Orlando home in Orlando. There's one for you. In 2017, their homeowners coverage has surged from $1,500 to nearly $6,000 a year. I guess one of the questions that I have, Stuart, when you are qualifying somebody for a mortgage, how do you budget for those buyers, especially for first-time buyers, that always seem to be buying at the top of their limit? So how do you educate these folks so that they're not shocked when their mortgage payment goes up $800 a month because of taxes and insurance?
Yeah, it's truly about education. It really is, especially for the first-time home buyer, as you mentioned. When you're buying a house for the first time, and we're going over what your mortgage payment's going to look like, and we're factoring in property taxes, and we're factoring in homeowners insurance. If the property taxes are based on an assessed value that's way below what they're buying the house for, because oftentimes that's the case, right? Take Baltimore City, for example. The tax rate's over 2%. And a lot of houses, a lot of neighborhoods, houses are being renovated. Maybe the assessed value from the city hasn't caught up yet with its true value. So somebody may be paying $300,000 for a house that's assessed for $150,000. So the property taxes may be $3,000 a year, and eventually that's going to catch up with them, and they're going to go to $6,000 a year eventually. So it's really about educating the client, educating the home buyer on what can be. This is what you can expect in the future. Is it going to happen tomorrow? Maybe not, because property values in Maryland get assessed every 3 years. unless it's triggered by,
A sale.
Permits are pulled, house is improved. If
Or
a
a
house is
sale.
improved, that can impact it. So it's really about education, and with first-time home buyers, it's a good idea as a lender, a responsible lender, to go beyond just the mortgage payment and talk about things that maybe they didn't have before.
When somebody bought their house 20 years ago and they're paying taxes on an assessed value of $150,000, and they sell that house for $600,000. How do you calculate that in for the buyers? Because they're looking at a tax bill that, they're like, oh, the taxes on this they're really not that high.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you bring them up to speed?
The taxes, the assessment will have gone up, right? So it's not just
when they make the sale, when they buy it for $600,000. It's sometimes there's the houses. I mean, when you look at homes that have almost doubled in 2 years, and you have homestead tax credits, and there's a delay in the actual increase in property value tax
Yeah. The homestead tax credit, fortunately in Maryland, the homestead tax credit is a credit to the actual tax bill. So when we do the estimate, and when the title company orders the title work, the taxes are based on the full assessed value, not the homestead.
When you're doing
credit.
your calculations.
Yeah. So when you look at listings, and I always tell my buyers, don't trust the listing. The listing may or may not be right. You have to go to, and you could just Google, Baltimore County property tax lookup, for example. And you go to the county website, you type in the street number, you type in the street name, you pull up the actual tax bill, you can see who owns the home, you can see what the tax bill is. And let's say the taxes say $6,000 a year. And then below that, you see special credit or homestead credit, $3,000. That means the current owners probably owned it a while and they've accumulated. I'm banging on the table. Yeah. Because I'm really. I apologize to the viewers. I'm very passionate, so I'm
so on something else.
I'm going to put my hands under. I'm going to sit on my hands. So the homestead tax credit, you really have to add that back in, and you can't just trust that the listing's going to be correct. Go to the county website, which we do for the buyer. But I always educate my buyers. You can do this yourself. It's public information. And obviously that's taken into account when we're qualifying people. So the PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, that all plays in when we're determining how much somebody can qualify for.
Right. Well, when you're qualifying for them, it's not necessarily the house that they're going to buy. So they really shouldn't be able to question that and know that on their own, so that they can kind of figure it out, especially now that they're not going to have buyer's agents. A lot of them.
Yeah, that's another subject, isn't it?
That's right. Well, it's something we got to talk about. One of my questions for you tonight is the mortgage industry. We have this situation now where a buyer may directly need to pay their agent, write them a check, right? So when all of this was sort of like the pie in the sky, we got the Department of Justice, the DOJ, who specifically came out and said it's not their intention to have buyers pay for their agent's commission. Not really sure what that means. Now that everybody is, and all the states are signing buyer agency contracts where they're agreeing to pay their agent a commission, there were a lot of people in the mortgage industry that had said that they were going to work with the buyers, even if it meant financing their commissions. Did you ever hear anybody talk about that?
No, that's not really how it works. So,
well, it hasn't been how it works, but has the mortgage industry talked about considering doing something like that?
No. So basically you have maximum loan to value, right? One of the risk factors for a mortgage is how much the buyer has invested into the purchase of that home. So for example, let's say you're talking about a conventional mortgage for a first-time home buyer. The minimum down payment for a conventional mortgage for a first-time home buyer or a buyer who qualifies for this type of financing is only 3% of the sales price. They only have to put down 3% of the sales price. If the mortgage industry, if you will, and it's not the mortgage industry really, it's the securitization of these funds, right, that would have to change the rules. But basically, if you were to allow somebody to finance on top of the 97% of the purchase of the home, finance another 2.5 or 3% of buyer agent commissions, so the buyer agent can get paid without it having to come directly out of their pocket or the seller's pocket. Now you're talking about 100% financing. That's a different risk. There's no skin in the game, if you will, at that point. So it's not up to the mortgage industry to fix the problem.
Well, they have grants for everything else.
They have grants for first-time buyers for down payment and closing costs.
Paying off student debt.
There's a Maryland program that was kind of a pioneer, actually. Hogan put that into place probably about 10 years ago, called the Smart Buy program. And that's changed a lot. It was up to $40,000 or $50,000 worth of student loan debt at one point that could be forgiven if you qualified. Now it's down to $20,000. And you can't have more than that in student loan debt. In other words, you can't have any left over.
Or you got to bring money to the table.
Or you have to pay off the difference.
Pay off your loan.
Yeah. Have a rich uncle, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just kind of curious because how are you starting to see where buyers are having a problem with not being able to pay their agent? Have you seen that show up yet?
I have not. And this is obviously very fresh. This is brand new. The middle of August is essentially when this change went into effect. So far, what I'm seeing from all of the homes that are listed that my buyers have been interested in, put offers in on, gone under contract on, the sellers are still providing buyer agent commission as part of the negotiation of the sale price. So I think, and in talking with most of the real estate agents that I work with, that I partner with on a regular basis, they're taking the approach of we're going to encourage our sellers to factor that concession for buyer's agent commission into the price of the home, because it's going to do a few things. Number one, it's going to make the transaction a lot smoother for everyone when there's representation on both sides. It's also going to, in theory, bring more people to the table. If a buyer's agent knows that their buyer can't pay their buyer's agent commission, and there's no commission on the table, so to speak, from the seller, or it's not negotiable, they may have to move on to another house. Maybe they don't show that house. I don't know.
Well, we're already starting to hear it from the buyers where they don't have the money. So, I mean, if they're signing a buyer agency in a lot of cases when they're saying, well, if this, house is not offering anything to pay my agent, then I can't buy it. Exactly. The question becomes then, should the agent stand in the way of the sale?
Wow. Yeah. That's a tough one. Does the buyer agent say, okay, I'm sorry, I'm out. I can't represent you. Do they work at a discount? I think that's a decision that every agent's going to have to make. That's a true
test of putting your client's needs above your own, isn't it?
1,000%.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's a tough conversation to have, but if you're really truly, when you look at it this way, you're working with a buyer and they fall in love with a house. Checks their boxes, really special house. They want it. Nothing's being offered to pay them. What kind of a person is going to stand there and say, well, then you can't buy the house? Because if you do, I'm going to sue you for my fee. That's a touchy subject.
It's a very touchy subject.
That's a touchy subject, man. But that comes down to, we'll see. I mean, we are starting to see where a lot of here's what's going to happen. And this is just common sense. I mean, we're in business. I listen to these agents a lot, and it's like you think to yourself, really? I remember when Walmart first came out, and it's kind of scary. I don't know. Maybe I don't remember when they first came out, but I remember the first time they came to my town. Okay, jeez, seems like forever ago, but people were so outraged. They said, man, this business, I want to shop local, right? They're like, we're going to boycott this store. And then all of a sudden they found that they sold it for less. And then they were sneaking in at night when their neighbors weren't, and buying their stuff because they were saving money in their pocket. The power of saving, the power of people's money. If you think that a buyer or seller are going to put their agent over them, that's the most ridiculous concept I've ever heard. Even if it means that it's their mom or dad. I mean, as the agent, I mean, come on, they're strapped, right? Or if they're not strapped, they're looking at their money and they're looking at you. You got a nice shirt on there, Stuart. It looks like it's custom. Looks custom made, nice fancy buttons. I mean, I've got a custom shirt on. But my point is, I don't necessarily need to buy you another one, right? So you look at it and you go, here's the deal. We have to be smart here. Home prices are coming down.
Home prices are coming down.
Home prices are coming down. Now, a seller is going to be sitting back and going, okay, I got the gold, man. I got my house. This is my house. My money, my house. You're a nice guy, but you got too fancy of a shirt on. I may need to knock you down a little bit and say, look, I'm not supporting this, man. Prices are coming down. And you want me to do what? You want me to buy the buyers, agents? I mean, this is a real conversation that we have to have. You guys, if you're an agent listening to me right now, man, you might not like that very much. But we have to be smart here and say, look, consumers are getting wiser, they're getting smarter. They're getting more savvy. I think we really have to look at what is going on right now and start having conversations with ourselves and saying, how are we going to deal with this? Because there's going to be a lot of agents that won't be in business and a lot of brokers that probably won't be in business either. As this thing is ramping up, you just said it's brand new. You just told me that they're not going to finance the commissions.
You can finance, well, technically, no, you cannot finance the commissions. If you're putting down more than the minimum required for that loan program, then yes, you could put less down, and essentially you're then financing the commission. I'll tell you a quick story. When I bought my first house, I was 25 years old. I was not in the mortgage business yet. I knew very little about real estate. I was trying to buy my first house.
What were you doing back then?
I was an accountant. I was working as an accountant, just coming up, making a modest living. For that age, I was, I feel like I was doing pretty well. But, I bought my first house for $128,000, and that was a stretch. I mean, that was a tough, that financially, that was a hard thing for me to do at that time. But I had a real estate agent who was a friend of mine, and he was. What I learned later, he was having pretty tough times himself. He was a struggling real estate agent. He had a work ethic like nobody I've ever met. This is 20 some years ago, the 20 plus year, closer to 30 than 20. And Joe, God rest his soul, he's passed away since. He probably showed me 40 or 50 houses. Townhouses in Baltimore County.
I'd have kicked you out long ago, man.
I had no
40
idea.
Or 50 houses.
I had no idea what I was doing to this guy. This poor guy. I mean, the look on his face. I remember this now. I understand now, right? Because my perspective has changed. But I remember the sad look on his face. We'd walk in these houses, and I'd say, "Nah, I don't like the way the slider is on the back deck or whatever." And he's like, "Just pick one. Just please pick one." That's what he's saying under his breath. So finally, there was one neighborhood that I really liked, and I was driving around one Saturday and I saw a sign, and I didn't know what FSBO was back then. I had no idea what that meant.
For sale by owner for
but
those
this-
of you that still don't.
FSBO is for sale by owner. I stumbled on this townhouse. This was after house number 40 that he showed me over the last couple months.
And you bought it.
I called him and I said, hey, I saw a house, I would like to see it. I saw a sign, and it was a sign that, was obviously not a professional real estate sign. It was a sign that you probably get from Home Depot for sale. So he goes, all right, I'll call the seller. And I didn't know how any of this worked. So he called the seller. We looked at the house and I fell in love with it. This is the one.
Sure you did.
So of course now, I'm probably really affecting this guy's health, because he's like, oh great. After the 40th house, now he wants to buy a for sale by owner.
He knocked on the door and asked him to pay his commission.
He knocked on the door. He built a rapport with the seller. It was a husband and wife. They were moving out of town. He built a rapport with them. He did such a great job. And he came to me and he said, hey, Stu, and he explained how all this worked. He goes, it's a for sale by owner. They're not offering a commission. That's why they're doing for sale by owner. And he negotiated with them for, I think, 1.5% or something like that. And he asked me if I'd be willing to, and able to do 0.5%. And this guy put in so much time, so much effort, and I recognized that. I mean, I did know that this guy
Did
was
you give
going
it to
well
him?
above and beyond. Of course I did.
Oh,
yeah, he deserved it. But there's another thing that I remember experiencing during this time. I was sitting in his office, and he had just gotten back from another house that he was selling, that he was listing, and it was supposed to go to settlement that day. And the seller didn't do what they were supposed to do. And one of the things they were supposed to do was scrub the stove, clean the stove. So I met him in his office. He was running late. He says, I'm really sorry. I had to go over and get on my hands and knees and scrub this stove so that I could get the house to settlement.
I'd have yanked $1,000 from the seller and put it in escrow and given it to the buyer to clean their own stove.
The lesson I learned from Joe,
That guy's nice.
God rest his soul. He was hungry. He had bills to pay, so he was willing to do whatever it took to sell houses and do what's right, for his clients. To your point, you know, and he had ethics. He had work ethic, and with the changes that we're seeing today, in my humble opinion, and I'm a mortgage lender and I rely on relationships with real estate agents who trust me to take care of their clients. So I have to be careful, whether I'm critical of real estate agents, because real estate agents are my bread and butter. But I will tell you that I think what we're going to see things getting back to.
That bread and butter's getting thin, buddy.
That's okay. I'm okay with that. I love the people I work.
You better
my
start
my
going
realtors
directly to the consumers.
Well, and we have to do that too, and we always have. But I will tell you, I love all the realtors I work with. I really do. And that's why I work with them. That's why I take care of them. But it's going to go back to old-fashioned service. What value are you bringing to your clients? And if you're bringing value, this business, what I've seen over the last 20 years is it's all about scale. I want to scale my real estate business. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. If you want to grow a business, you have to scale your business. But you can't scale your business and forget about value and service and what you're actually providing for that 2.5% or 3%. Right?
Yeah, I mean, look,
and that's what we have to get back to.
Look, there's no doubt that I work very hard for my clients, and I feel like I earn my own commission, and I think any agent does. I think we're really addressing the public that, has been dealt a very bad hand of cards by a lot of very incompetent agents that had commission breath. And, through what happened, and I've gone over this before. I mean, I'm a broker, for crying out loud. I love my business. I love my industry. I love the good people that work in it. But there are a lot of times when I had open houses and the agent never even went into the open house, and they called me up and asked if it was worth to put an offer in. And I'm looking at my sheet. So their clients came through, their client found the house on Zillow. They come into the open house, they tour the house, they fill out their, the sheet or whatever, electronic. The agents do different things as to register when they come in the open house. And then all of a sudden I get a call from an agent that says, yeah, I'm going to write an offer. Can you tell me if it's worth putting an offer in? And I'm going, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, how many offers do you have? And I'm looking on my paperwork and I'm going, I don't even have you down here. It just went on the market. We only had today's open house, and I'm kind of curious, have you even seen the house? And they said no. At one agent, I specifically remember, and they didn't get the deal. And it wasn't because of me. It was because of the sellers, when, transparency and writing out all the offers. And the agent said, I don't need to see the house. And I said, well, what do? You just call agents up and ask if it's worth putting in an offer? I mean, what do you do? Your client came and looked at the house. The house has been on the market for a day. We had a banging open house. We've got multiple offers on the table, but you don't even think it's worth your time. And we're talking about $1 million house. You don't even think it's worth your time coming through for whatever, 25, 30,000, whatever the commission is, right? Come on, man. I mean, when we start, I got into this debate with, a buddy of mine last night over text. And I'm like, man, you're defending the wrong thing. You're defending the wrong thing. You could sit there and say that we're in this mess. The consumer stood up and they won. Period. They spoke. Now, it was only one example in multiple lawsuits, but the bottom line is they won. Whether you think it's right or wrong, I think it's time that we start standing up and saying the market's overvalued. People went nuts the last 4 years. Nuts. Is this insanity? Am I the only one? Sometimes I feel like I am.
It's easy to get
Sometimes
caught up.
I feel like I'm the only sane one. When we look at what's going on out there, it's like, what the hell is going on? People are struggling. And yet we have, cheerleaders that are saying this is a great thing. They're putting people in houses that they can't afford. Yeah, they're making the decisions, but how much does a best friend or a mom's best friend, how much influence does somebody have in telling somebody, don't worry about that. I got a guy to fix that. That's no big deal. If you ask for that, you're not going to get the house. At what point do you put your client's needs in front of your own and say, guys, this is crazy? Doesn't make sense. You might not like that, Stuart.
I like everything.
You like everything. You don't want to make any of your agents mad at you.
No, I think it, the change, that just took place is about full disclosure. I mean, that's really what it is. And most of the agents I work with say they already consulted with their clients. It was about transparency, right?
You're right.
That's the buzzword nowadays, is transparency, and I get it. So the conversation has just had to change a little bit to the point where the buyer's agent has to be very clear with the buyer up front. This is the fee that I get paid to sell a house and represent you as a buyer, and you may or may not have to pay some or all of it, depending on what's negotiable on a particular house.
No, and we are always going to have people that want to pay for a service. I mean, it's just like financial advisors, right? I mean, I'm saying that there is a value to having somebody in your camp, but I'm going beyond that. What I'm really talking about, what I'm going beyond, is the fact that somebody wants to go look at a house and somebody has to sit down with them and say, should you even buy a house?
Well, that's
number one. Instead of saying, oh man, I got a buyer on the hook. Stuart, can you get them? Can you get it done?
Yeah.
They got problems, man. They got problems. They got credit problems. They need to raise their credit score a little bit. Can you help them? Can you perform a little miracle for me so we can get these people in a house? Right? They got credit card debt. How can we do that? Oh, don't buy anything. Don't go out. I know your car's on the last leg, but the last thing you want to do is go buy a car right now, man. You will not get that mortgage. All right, we'll just keep nursing that car. Oh, you don't have money down? Well, we're going to get the sellers to give the money down because I'm broke. Should you be buying a house? That's number one. We need to start educating people instead of putting them in debt. One of the problems why we're over $1.3 trillion in credit card debt right now, or consumer debt is out off the chain. One of the reasons why is because nobody is taking responsibility to say, guys, slow down. It's not time. I just had a buyer consult. Did the same thing, sat down with another loan officer and said, look, what's the deal here? What do you want to do? You guys aren't ready. How much money do you have? $5,000. That's not enough. This is not a piece of equipment.
Right.
Right? This is not a work truck that you're going to go out and make money on. That's my issue, is what have we done to do that, number one? And I'm not picking on you. I like you. You wouldn't be here if I didn't think you did a good job. But my point is that we have to stand up. We're missing all kinds of. You want to be a professional, step up to the plate. I encourage every agent and loan officer out there. You want to be a professional, step up to the plate. Stop lying to people. Stop pushing your own your needs in front of your clients. That's why we're in this spot right now. Because if we were honest and educating people of the money that they were spending, you wouldn't have a sit or burn it case that goes and wins all of this money and, that supports the DOJ saying, I told you these guys are bad for the last 40 years. We've been after NAR, right? And I'm not saying that, there isn't, some validity to some of these whatever. But my point is that if we stood up in the first place and we're doing the right job for our clientele, they wouldn't win a case like that. And now this guy, whoever they are, has decided to go into business and open up, which is complete mud on the industry's face, and open up a brokerage or a broker service business. I think it's called Landy, and you guys can check it out. I got more agents that are calling me up. They're so pissed off about it. They're like, this guy sues the brokerages and wins. Seller saying I shouldn't be, that the industry's price fixing, and then goes ahead and smacks all of you in the face. Didn't smack me in the face because I don't care. Right? We do what we do. You know what I mean? The ones that they're going after are not our boutique brokerage, okay? But what's happening here is, now they're going to compete with you guys. They opened up with two other partners. It looks like you guys can Google it and read it yourself. They opened up a discount. Whatever service. I'm going to charge you $50 $49 for you buyers that tore a house. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. Hey, I want to go look at 50 houses and I'm going to pay $50 a house. You sound like a good deal, Stuart?
Might have looked at a few less houses.
You ready to go?
Yeah, I may have.
Right?
May have.
You're going to pay $50 to go view a house.
I may have been a little more selective.
How long is that going to last for the buyers? They're like, oh man, that was dumb. That was $50 I wasted. Maybe they even took an Uber there. Cost them $100 to go look at a house and they don't like the color inside, or the pictures didn't look just so. Boy, those pictures online sure do look a lot different than they do in person. Or they got the neighbor's 13 barking dogs in the backyard that they didn't see in the listing and they spent $50 for it. All I'm saying is really a call to the industry to say we need to clean our act up. And, and stop whining about this, lawsuit and start, being, like you said, transparent.
Yeah. And honest with people. I think, the point you made, when I qualify somebody, it's a math problem, right? But I still, when somebody asks my opinion about, hey, where's the market going? I can't just give them a rosy picture and pretend that I know what the future holds, right? And so he says, well, what happens if I buy this house and I pay over appraised value and the value goes down and the market shifts? Yeah, that could be a problem. I think, like you said, putting the client before the buck. And I think when you put the buck before the client, you're going to tend to tell people things that you can't back up. And I think that's what our responsibility is, to help people make informed decisions, right? The facts are the facts. If you can qualify for a home and you want to buy that home, I can't tell them no. Yeah, I could be sued. I could lose my license if I tell somebody no that qualifies.
I don't know that you'd lose your license. They probably would find somebody else. But if you told them you weren't going to help them, you're not bound to help anybody, are you?
No, but there's...
If you say, I think it's a bad idea that you buy a house, and they say, well, screw you, Stuart. I don't care what you think. I'm going to do it anyway. And
do I qualify? If the answer is yes, then I'm obligated to help them the same way I would help anybody else.
And I'm not taking a shot at you. By the way, I was just thinking some odd thing here. You're probably the other agents other than Sachs Realty agents that are listening to this. They're probably like, Stuart, what are you doing on that guy's show? They're like, man, I can't believe you were on there. And it's almost like supporting what he's saying.
Yeah, like suicide, right?
Man, I mean, it's like self-fulfilled prophecy here, man. They probably won't like you anymore.
No,
I wouldn't care, but so here's the thing. When I meet a buyer and we go through a house and we're looking at a house and they say, Todd, I really like this house. Should I buy it? I'm like, I can't tell you whether to buy it or not. But let me ask you something, Stuart. If in 2 months from now, you found out that price dropped $70,000 in price, or 6 months, or next year, you bought at the top of the market and the price declined, would you care?
That's a fair question.
Would you be mad? If they say, not really, I can afford it, so I'm going to stay here long enough, I'm like, well, then buy it. If that's your attitude, buy it. You're not coming back and getting mad at me, because what I'm telling people is there's a possibility that the price could go down. Now, I'm not saying that it will. In gospel, I mean, I can't put anybody in the position of money printing. We would have thought that this would have happened already, because the insanity doesn't make sense. When we're talking about handing out down payment money like candy bars, where's the money come from? You?
Absolutely. Government programs are subsidized by tax.
So I can't say that none of this stuff, insanity, won't go on and on and on for as long as it possibly can. But what I will tell you is that without it, we are in trouble. If you look at the amount of debt, look, I went to the grocery store. Here's another story that people would be like, oh, we went to the grocery store. I went to 2 stores. I went to the grocery store. I bought a bunch of nothing. I mean, I'm talking sauces for chicken wings. Price those things out, man. It's crazy. Little bottles. $170. People have to make like $270, $260 to net that kind of money to go buy just about nothing at the grocery store. These numbers are terrible. Go fix your car. Open up your utility bill. It goes on and on. Pay your auto insurance. Everything is so inflated. And then they have the audacity to tell us that inflation is under control. It's not under control. It's the most out of control it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean...
it's not under control.
When inflation was running as high as it was for as long as it was, and then it tames to 2 or 3%, the prices are still the prices, right?
They still are high.
I've got this bald dome here, and my dermatologist said I have to use a certain type of SPF, stuff on my head. And I went to Walgreens the other day, and I didn't even look at the price. This is what my dermatologist told me I need to get and use on my head, because otherwise I'm going to get skin cancer. And I go to the counter, and the young man goes, I think he thought it was an error. It was like $46 for this stuff.
A little tube.
I was like,
I'll be back next week.
I got to get a second job. Oh, by the way, Nordstrom clearance rack, by the way.
Come on, man.
Not custom.
Oh, you take me serious, man. You actually thought I was picking on
Oh,
you.
I'm letting the viewers know.
All right.
That I'm
Nice shirt, though.
I'm a thrifty guy.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm
I have
glad.
to pay bills like
They're
everyone
going to be
else.
thrifty when they're shopping your mortgages.
That's
How's
okay.
that?
That's okay. I'm good with
You're gonna
it.
be thrifty. You're gonna
Hey,
you're gonna
look,
just get some thrifty buyers. All right, let's take some. Look, what we want to do is bring some. We want to bring some callers in here. Have we got any? We publish the link. If you guys want to come in and ask a question, talk about something or whatever, just we'll try and be quick and talk to as many people as we can. In the meantime, let's go ahead and answer some questions. Joe, what do you got? Any questions for man? You got some. Let's start up here. Here we go. Come on, let's give us some good stuff here.
Is that where we put these things in?
Oh yeah, not yet. When the callers come in, see if we have anybody that wants to come in and talk about whether they think. Here we go. Question: another channel is advocating elimination of property taxes altogether. My opinion is this is a recipe for even higher house prices. Thoughts? I don't think they're going to get rid of property taxes. I mean, I think it's a Stuart, you think they're going to get rid of property taxes? I mean, this goes back, and that is in the Constitution, by the way.
Yeah.
Property taxes are constitutional.
I don't see that as being a hot topic that I'm hearing about now.
You know what will happen is if we see home prices get to back to normal. And by the way, normal would be probably taking us back to somewhere around 2019. So if you looked at 2019 prices, I know I said this probably last week, I think it was, because a lot of people, there's a video that we have with Harry Dent. A lot of people think he's a crazy guy. I love him. He's, yes, he's animated, but man, when he talks common sense. The problem is that a lot of people are just, they just, whatever you say, they just want to combat it no matter what. So, it's like, it makes you wonder, like, who are you? How much money do you make? Do you have a job that you can't lose? When I start looking at some of these comments and I'm thinking like, why would they even say that? Like, why they think this is normal? They think I'm making a political statement and I'm not. I think that it doesn't matter, which side of the aisle you're on. If you're happy with the way that what you end up with at the end of the day and that you can't afford anything, then if you're happy with that, then hey, no problem. Just keep on going. Why comment? Because the fact of the matter is most people aren't okay with it and most people are struggling. We serve them. I get the 500 emails a day. Everybody has a story. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. And, I'm fortunate that we talk and we reach enough people that we get that kind of response in emails that are coming in. It takes forever to go through them because I look at them myself. But the thing is, and these are stories, man, these are real life stories of people that are struggling every single day. But, we've got to, what happens if we do see home prices come down to normal? Number one, it's going to be very painful for the people that need to sell their house because they're going to lose money and the banks will lose money. And, it sucks when you look at your neighbor across the street that has a nicer house and they paid $150,000 less than you did because they bought it in a dip instead of the peak. And like Stuart said, that's okay if, for some people. But what will happen is then you can fight your property taxes to get them down. To lower the property taxes. That's what happened during the GFC. People were fighting to get their taxes down and they were winning. When we're starting to see comps and websites like Zillow and Realtor.com and Redfin publishing devaluing prices on in the neighborhoods, they're the kind of trend lines that we start to see where it's like, okay, prices are getting hopefully back to a more affordable number. We don't want to date the rate because, like a lot of the lenders say, and hope that you can refinance later. We want a better price today, not the better rate today. We'll take them both. But we certainly would like to have the asset price be less because we all want to buy low and sell with some kind of a profit. That's the whole purpose here, not to have the insurance company, the tax man, and everybody else take all your money and your credit cards, extract all of your equity from you. But I don't think that we're going to see a reduction or elimination of property taxes. I know a couple states are proposing it. We'll see what happens. It's a very localized thing, local governments, but we'll see. But I wouldn't count on it. Thoughts on Ocean City, Maryland housing market in the next 6 to 12 months? You know anything about that market?
No, but I do know from talking to some of my realtor friends that work that market, there has been a shift there. And I will say that insurance in markets like that are impacted greater than inland markets. So that's a big factor, especially with condominiums. Condominium insurance, to the point where condominium associations have adjusted their blanket policies in some cases where the insurance doesn't meet the guidelines for financing. So these properties, these condo projects are not financeable with your standard conforming financing now. We've run into that a few times recently. So markets like Ocean City, watch for the volatility there. Property taxes obviously have gone up. Insurance costs have gone up. You're going to see, and we're 4 years from the height of COVID now, right? Where everybody was going to work remote and everybody was deciding to go live somewhere like, I think I'll go live in Ocean City because I'll get to work remotely now. Some of that's kind of starting to fade away a little bit. Companies are forcing their employees to come back to the office. People aren't seeing the same flexibility that they had in 2020, 21, 22. So yeah, I think those markets like Ocean City, you're going to see a greater correction, if you will, than maybe, let's say, in Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I have been tracking the Ocean City market. I have a client that is trying to sell or getting ready to sell. It's not listed yet, so I have been doing a little bit of tracking on the higher streets, around 117, Jamestown, and that area, more on the bay side, the inlet side. We are seeing where, a lot of the townhouses, 3-bedroom, 2-bath or 3-bath, with a, some type of water access, a lift, somewhere in that $550,000 to $600,000 price range. Now that is a waterfront property. It's on the inlet for people, for people that want that kind of lifestyle. That price I've been tracking for quite some time, and it seems to be holding pretty strong. Where we're starting to see the prices really come down is really in, like what you said, that condominium market where there is no control on the actual prices. I mean, you can see Florida is being destroyed right now because the condominium fees are through the roof. And here's what happens when people are, suckered in. It's like buying a timeshare. A condominium, I think is one of the, personally, I don't like them. I don't like HOAs. I don't like condominiums. I certainly sell enough people that live in there. They're okay with it. It's not for me. I don't want somebody else telling me what I can do and what I can't do and whether I can build a fence or not build a fence, or, that I can have 3 dogs or I can have 1 dog or what. They're unnecessary rules that are put on people that are spending a lot of money to be there. And, and you have somebody that gets on the board for a mission to do something, and they completely screw everybody that's in the community. So that happens a lot in HOAs. If you live in one, you probably know what I'm talking about. But condominiums is the most dangerous of them all, because what happens is the people that are broke and can't afford to pay their bills, the other people have to step up and pay. Right? So that's the problem with a condominium. They can sue, they can attach, they can foreclose. Give me a break. What happens is you get assessed. If the money's not there, they do assessments, special assessments, and you pay it, period. So you get somebody that, they've deferred maintenance for a while. They kept the condo fees low. You're looking at it, you're going, it's only $250 a month. It's not that bad. And then you move into the place and realize, wow, insurance is going up 200% because it's a waterfront property, or you need a $500,000 roof replacement or something like that. if you're going to buy a condo, you got to make sure they're not undercapitalized. And, you have to look at their capital expenditures or projections to find out, are they in a deficit, because you're going to be paying it. And with a lot of the Ocean City properties, especially the oceanfront, those properties are distressed. I mean, you have no idea the beating that they take, the weather beating that they take, number one. And, a lot of them are old buildings, 50, 60, 70-year-old buildings. And these people are buying them, and they're regretting it. So we're seeing a softening in that side, that market, the condominium market, not so much the townhouse market that's on the bay. All right, Todd, how is the days on market and number of price reductions in your MLS, 3 million to 5 million? I could pull it up. I'll do it. I'll do it. Prepare for it for next week for you. You're certainly seeing, there are a lot of agents that believe that the luxury market is always overpriced. And it's probably the most dangerous to be in, because what happens is people don't like your style. And when you get people that can buy a $3 million or $5 million house, usually the days on market are very elevated and the prices are dipping the most. We see those taking the biggest haircuts because people go in, they design it the way that they want, and they go, man, this is too extravagant or too, whatever. And they don't like it, and they have the money to negotiate on it. And they know they're going to go in and spend another $500,000 renovating the kitchen that they can't stand because of your taste. So we see that the ones that have the real money, they're getting the biggest price reductions. And that really isn't just in my MLS. I deal with, talk to brokers all over the country, especially in Florida. Boca is a big one, Boca Raton, where they see these big $5, $6, $8 million houses sitting on the market for years. All right. Will gold plummet with the housing market?
Will gold plummet with the housing market?
You know gold?
No. But I would think that gold would go the opposite direction. But now with different types of currencies in the market, the stock market, the way that's gone, I don't know. I'm not the expert on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly have talked to a lot of people that certainly are experts on that. Peter Schiff, multiple interviews with him. They believe that gold's going to go to $10,000 an ounce. I think that the biggest key that we have to look at is, and this is really on a more of a geopolitical aspect, central bankers are the ones that are raising the prices on gold. It's not me or Stuart or you. You're not going out and buying enough gold that's going to move the market the way that it's moved. The reason that the prices are where they are right now is because of the big central bankers buying it and storing the gold. And as some of these experts talk about that, the reason that they say is because the dollar is going to be devalued big time. And in fact, a lot of people feel that it will actually lose its reserve currency role globally, and on a bigger scale, when you have like the BRICS nations and things like that are teaming up to have their own currency. And what they do know is through the test of time, gold seems to be, a safe place to put your money. I don't know. Don't take my advice for it. I'm not a financial advisor and I'm not a gold expert, but I do interview enough of these guys to understand what is happening in actuality with the inflation costs, the inflation tax that it means to consumers, that your money is worth less. So what you have to decide is the dollar in your pocket, as it's being deteriorated away, do you take a percentage of that and put it in a physical asset like gold that hopefully will at least hold its value and not de-dollarize? So even if gold, it's goes up in, doesn't go to $10,000 an ounce, but a lot of these people feel as the next couple of years, as we have the de-dollarization or the massive inflation, that this is where, smart people will put some of their money. Again, it's the central bankers that are driving the price of gold. right. Let's see what else. How long until the housing market bottoms? What about rural areas with low inventory? Again, I mean, nobody has a magic wand to know when it's going to bottom, where that will be. Don't try and time the bottom. I would say that look for affordability in your own balance account. What is affordable to you. But I can tell you that it's not going to happen overnight. A lot of people think real estate's a slow moving target. So what happens is, because it's purely because of lag effect, you will start to see, if a couple things happen: mortgage rates drop, home prices drop, more inventory hits the market. You will start to see where the trend kind of flattens out, or when you start seeing the activity picking up in the active market. Days on market start shrinking. I think there'll be more indicators of trying to find out, where the public feels the bottom is. But what I will tell you is that, when you're looking at this, a lot of people have taken their homes off the market. So we are seeing that. A lot of the sellers are frustrated because they feel they missed the spring market. Their house is sitting, their agents, suggesting price reductions, and a lot of them are just taking them off the market altogether and hoping that a spring market would be better. So the inventory is kind of flattened out. We started seeing it really spike, but in a bulk of the markets in the United States, we're now seeing it flatten out again. We got a caller. All right, let's bring them in.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. We need our headphones.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Hey, what's going on? Nurse Manning, how are you?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you. Where are you calling from?
Awesome. So I'm a nurse in Omaha, Nebraska. And your question early on, there was like 4 different options about how do you see housing prices going down, and I think I, along with 85% of the crowd, said just let it burst or something like that. And that's kind of been my hope for like the last 12 years. Like, I'm 30 years old now, and I've been just trying to Dave Ramsey, get your 20%, save up, make that big down payment for a house. And the prices just got away from me. Like, I mean, my parents didn't have any money, and I pretty much just had to work for it all myself. And I was a EMT firefighter, not making a lot of money. And then eventually I got the nursing thing going, travel nursed around, bought a bunch of gold because I looked at 2008, and it looked like gold had an inverse to housing prices. So it just seemed like, well, if I get on the gold now, keep traveling, keep making that money, and then eventually when prices do crash down, maybe my gold will go up, and then I can have maybe half the house paid off right away, or pay off a really cheap house if I could do it that way. But no, that was kind of the strategy. And then it kind of seemed like, as gold just didn't really do a whole lot. And I started buying it when it was maybe 1600. So I guess I'm doing okay. But everybody told me to buy Bitcoin, and I said no, I'm going to get gold because Peter Schiff told me to. But I guess okay. So one idea that I've talked to a couple of real estate patients of mine, and nobody really talks about this, but how there's like sin taxes on like tobacco and alcohol and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Like, obviously BlackRock and all these big guys are getting into the game because it's a good investment. It's more interest, more return than they're getting, from other places. They wouldn't be in the game if that wasn't where the money was at. So why don't we just make it a bad investment? Like, that's pretty simple, right? You could make it a better investment for mom and pops that are just trying to get their first house, and you could make it a terrible investment for BlackRock, and that's just taxes. Like, you don't have to change the law. All you got to do is just say, hey, if you're such and such sized entity, we don't want you a part of this market. We're going to tax the hell out of you. And then everybody else, and I think politically, 90% of people would be on board with this, saying everyone gets a huge tax break on their property taxes, but those giant investor types, we're gonna make it hurt, and it just naturally balanced out. And I don't know the percentages, you don't have to do it overnight. It's not like I'm purposefully trying to crash every market or something, but figure out what that number is and just keep going at it until it balances out. I mean, what you guys would know is that 20% of the market is owned by investors in some capacity.
Yeah, well, I'd say over the last probably 6 or 7 or so years, a third of them have been investors that are buying the houses. So,
Right.
easily 30 some percent. The
Okay.
bigger question is, what is the percentage per market? Because when we look at areas in Texas, 50% almost of the home sales in the pandemic boom was, investors, corporate buyers. And, it goes much deeper. It's not just, if you think about all of the fractional buyers nowadays, Bezos, they used his name, Arrived Homes. I don't know to what degree he is in this fractional platform, but I know that it was a big deal. They certainly used Jeff Bezos' name with Arrived Homes, and they sort of spearheaded this initiative to get fractional buyers in particular properties. So it's not just a matter of a Wall Street company coming in and buying up a for rent community, though a lot of them did. They were competing against the first time buyers out there. They were entry level homes, but we have to remember, what really fueled this. When we look at, the government never really messed with mortgage-backed securities until after the GFC. So what happened was they were the ones that started buying mortgages, becoming the subprime borrower, in my opinion, of the now subprime borrower. But really what happened was when these houses were being foreclosed, it was massive numbers of homes being foreclosed. We bundled those houses up and sold them to Wall Street for, pennies on the dollar. And what we told them to do was, look, we're going to sell you these houses. We need to clean up the blight in the neighborhood. And, because it was an implosion, and they were buying up, hundreds of houses, portfolios of houses. And the deal was that they had to rent those houses for 12 months to the same people that were losing the houses. Clean up the neighborhoods, cut the grass, do the improvements on the houses. Well, then from that point, you were talking about you've been in the housing market for 12 years. That takes us back to 2012. That was really where we started seeing some of the lowest prices on housing. From there, it was a straight uphill price increase. So what happened was Wall Street got a taste of single family houses for the first time, really. They bought them at the right prices. They took advantage or gained advantage of the price appreciation, the rental appreciation. And then what happened was it just fueled in 2020 and prices went straight up. A lot of the people that got into the game, it's like the Bitcoin stuff, right? I mean, if you'd have bought it back in the day, in 2008 or whatever, you would be a billionaire right now. So a lot of these landlords that bought houses back then, they're purely wealthy because, when you look at the Ken McElroys, the, Dave Ramsey's and what they did was they bought all of this inventory when it was priced very affordable. Now it's very easy to say, hey guys, keep buying it. You should be a landlord and you're going to make a bazillion dollars for yourself. That ship has sailed. It's sailed. When the rents exceed, where it doesn't make sense to buy and it's cheaper to rent, you're not going to landlord and be successful at it. And we're going to see a whole world of hurt on these people that maxed out their debt to buy all these rental properties that now they're going to need a lot of repairs. And it's, but as far as the tax, what you're talking about, I mean, that becomes the battle in itself. How do you tax a free market? If you want to say that we should have a free market, how do you tax a business and say you can't have this or you can't? And
that's the whole point, is that I don't feel like you have to pass any new legislation, and you guys would know this better than I do. Again, I'm a nurse, but there's already taxes on businesses. There's already different rates that I'm going to pay on my first single family home versus I know you've got hundreds of thousands of, doors, like you say. Like, yeah, I don't know what the rate is on that, but I'm sure it's different. You're in just a different category. And I wouldn't suggest, oh, like some kind of full blown communism or anything where we've got to, and I've seen that around here. Like there's some senator in Omaha that like they just kind of crocodile tears. They put some bill out there that says, oh yeah, we're going to make it so that only, gigantic firms from inside the state can buy. And everybody knows that there's not a bunch of gigantic firms in here. I mean, Warren Buffett lives down the street, but I don't think there's like a ton of them. And the story is often that, oh, somebody from outside the state bought up this whole neighborhood, whatever. And so the bill from Nebraska was saying, hey, we'll just, ban those guys. And I just don't think that's nearly as politically palatable as telling the entire population to some extent we're going to lower your property taxes, except for the investment crowd. That
well, they're already doing a lot of
support. Say what?
Well, they are already doing that.
The lowering the property taxes thing.
You can have a homestead tax protection where investors don't have that.
Okay, yeah.
There is no cap on investor property tax.
Right, yeah. Well, and I'm just saying,
unless they've worked it out.
Sorry.
Now there are investors that buy in opportunity zones. That was the big thing, where they came out with these different opportunity zones. They gave all the states, a time period to where they had to list out the areas that were, struggling in their state, and they had to identify these areas. And then there were lots of tax credits and incentives for investors to come in and revitalize those areas. I don't think it worked out very well across the country. There are certain markets that did take advantage of that and ended up regentrifying areas and, pouring a lot of money into areas through new job creation and stuff like that. But there are certainly better property tax advantages to owner occupants than there are investors.
And I guess kind of somewhat what I'm saying is I don't think the government would. It doesn't really like my senator here in Omaha. It's crocodile tears. They tell the people what they want to hear, but at the end of the day, they don't want property prices going down to a large degree. They don't want stock prices going down.
Of course,
because it's less tax revenue. You get too much of that, and the whole system just kind of spirals out of control. So it's like they're putting young people more or less than my age on the altar of boomers got to retire good. It's like they don't want anything to happen. Prices have to keep going up forever. And like my friends, I don't know. I mean, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I pay $1,700 a month. That's probably 60% of my income. Like, how am I supposed to get married and have a couple of kids and tell the wife to stay home with them? Like, nope, she knows that's not realistic. So now everybody's just single and birth control. Like it's ruining my generation. And like, they don't care as long as we just keep paying taxes. And they just kind of sell us this kind of pipe dream. Like they're not even good at it anymore. Like they're like, well, how about a $25,000 tax credit? Oh, great. You're just going to make the houses more expensive. You're going to cause more inflation. Like you just refuse to just let deflation happen just once. Like I don't, it's driving me nuts, but
you are a very smart guy. I mean, what you're saying, I mean, we need more of our younger population to say that this is insane, because what's happening is a lot of people are just buying it as the norm, and that there is no real American dream anymore. I mean, when we take housing and, turn it into corporate America, a roof over your head, a place to where you should raise a family without having a fear of not being able to afford your place next month, or have a job loss, and now you're on the street living in a tent. This is terrible, and you're exactly right. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that this is normal. We're going to give you a $25,000 tax. You won't be able to afford a roof replacement, but we're going to push home ownership and get you in that sucker as much as we can. Here's the problem, and I always said this is the biggest problem that we have. because they run into a wall to where affordability just taps out. Now, the banks, in order for us to continue down the path that we're on right now, and I'm not even going to, I mean, maybe you want to tell what kind of debt you have, if you have any debt at all. But I know you said you've been saving and investing in gold. Do you carry any credit card debt month to month?
No, I've never paid a dime on that. Dave Ramsey was wrong. I've had like one credit card for the last, 15 years or something, and I just make money on that. I just pay it off every week. I look at my stuff and pay it off. I mean, it's free money, and it helps build your credit score a little bit. So, I've got
Yeah, well, that's
twenty
good. That's
thousand
that's
in
great.
student nursing debt, but it's at like a 2-3%. So I have no motivation to pay it off quickly because inflation's at least 5. So like I'm
Do you
just
find
letting
that
that.
normal of your peers?
A lot of nurses I know got themselves $70,000 of debt and brag about going to fancy schools. I went to a community college and just tried to keep it as cheap as I could. But yeah, it's probably not going anywhere though, because it's like, I don't know, like $300 a month. And, um, with the interest and everything, it's basically going to sit there and eat me $300 a month forever. But I figure, I don't know, sometime in the next 10 years or so, $20,000 is going to be like what you made at work today. If I always get this feeling that there's just a lot of money just kind of floating in the roof somewhere, like at the rate the government's printing it, it's all kind of hovering up there. And one day it's going to come down so hard and fast, we're going to be, putting it on the wallpaper, that sort of thing they talked about in Weimar, Germany. Like, there's no way you see all the I'm forgetting the name of the website, but it's the pictures where it's like all the gold in the world, and it's this tiny little brick, and then here's all the derivative debts, and there's like 1,000 bricks, right? Like when they're printing the way they are, I feel like the system is just so doomed to crash that I'm not going to spend my time and energy trying to pay off this debt, And really, part of me just thinks, man, if I could get myself $1 million house tomorrow and just afford the mortgage on it as long as it takes, like the system is just kind of bound to crash a little bit. But then they get you because you go back to like the Great Depression, and a lot of people lost their farms and houses and stuff because they couldn't afford the property taxes. And so, sure, your house might be paid off really easy in that environment, but you still can't afford the property taxes that are now coming with that increased valuation. So, like, and I guess that's kind of what I'm hearing. I kind of got into it with my brother the other day because he married a doctor and escaped this whole rat hole. Uh, and he's like, well, my property taxes are going up and it's so rough. And much older coworkers are telling me they got $400 mortgages for 5-bedroom houses. And I'm like, okay, I have a hard time feeling bad for you guys. Like, I'm at 1,700 a month. It's eating up all the income that I would use to save up for a house. And you guys are crying about how your property taxes are going up. I'm like, if it's so bad, oh, you know what? I wish they would double your property taxes because maybe it would just crash the market because people would be forced to sell. Give me something.
Yeah. Well, I
I don't
think
know.
what's happening is we're seeing the end of this road. It's either one of two things are going to happen. They're either going to hand out more money, more free money. They're just going to give
Yeah.
it freely, and which doesn't seem like it's a very practical approach. Or the employers are going to have to all of a sudden pay employees 30, 40, 50% more in their paychecks. I don't see that happening. We're seeing businesses struggling right now and layoffs happening everywhere across every industry. So I think we're at the end of the sort of the road here. The can's kicked as far down the road as it can be. I think it'd be, we'll see as we go into November, and what happens after that, as far as, the ability to continue to prop this up or, let it correct. So, but anyway, Stu, anything you want to add to this conversation?
No, I mean the pain that you're feeling. I've witnessed it, and the affordability factor has affected so many people in your age range and where you are in your professional career. I know that the average first-time home buyer used to be in the mid-20s. Now it's in the mid-30s, and people are living at home longer because they have to. people are, what they call house hacking. If you are able to purchase and qualify to purchase, a lot of folks who are single are, buying and renting out the extra bedrooms in order to afford the mortgage. People have to get more creative these days, it seems like. And, again, aside from the waves in the market that we're going to experience, there's going to be some downward trend in home prices. To what degree, we don't know yet. But when it's opportunistic, when you can qualify, I would suggest, the 20% down thing is a great goal. If you haven't already talk to a lender and find out what is it going to take, at what point, what's the trigger point for me with my income. As a traveling nurse, you really have to look at that closely too, because your income's variable, and variable income is more difficult to qualify.
Yeah, I was a
so
travel nurse, and I went staff. And the travel thing
Okay.
is very suspicious to, not just for the lending, because you could just show up somewhere and then they just decide, hey, you're the fat, we're cutting you. You're the most expensive
Right.
fat, so it's
Right.
not stable. But
Yeah.
real quick, I called up just Wells Fargo. That's my bank forever. So I know I probably could have got a better rate if I shopped around. But I just wanted to. They said, yeah, we'll give you 280. And like the smallest new house that you can get is about 410 around here. So it wasn't, it was just a bit. It was just a bit outside, and then it was like a little over $3,000 a month for the mortgage. So
Yeah.
what is that, like 75% of your income? Like you buy a house just so you can
Yeah. And
immediately become a landlord to your friends, or I'm like, that's not what wasn't what I wanted to do. And then if you ever lose your job, oh, you're just host because. But I don't know. I got, honestly, I got into the whole EMT and the nurse thing because I thought the world was coming to an end back in 2012. I was like, well, I better find something that's gonna be good for my hands, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. And but I was 18, broke. Like I wish I could have afforded a house back when they were cheap, but even back then there was a lot of fear. That's like when the prepping movement started. In some ways, in my mind, it was like, um, I don't know. There's just a lot of YouTube fear porn going on, like, and I was like, oh yeah, it's still got further to fall, and then it just kind of exploded. So,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah. We had a several flat years in the mid 2000 teens, and we really didn't see home prices really start skyrocketing until a few years ago. So there was from 2006 2006 to 2008 when the crash was happening. After that, we didn't see any appreciation whatsoever in home prices for a decade. So what we've seen the last few years, quite frankly, was a little bit of a catch up as well from the previous decade. So when you look at it over a longer period of time, so when you're talking about the fear mongering and just like over analyzing these waves in the market, look at things over 10 or 15 years. Purchasing a primary residence isn't meant to be a short-term investment. It may happen that way if you have to move or relocate for work, or you decide you want to live in a different state or whatever, or get married. Sorry, I lost my earpiece. But
yeah,
just, think about it in terms of the longer term, the average 7 to 15 years that you're going to live in a home. And,
right.
again, when the time's right, and you don't want to qualify for a mortgage based on the fact that you're going to get rental income, because if you don't have that rental income, you don't want to put yourself in that position. You want to be able to afford the house without it.
Yeah.
But
I,
that's what people are doing.
I just discovered something the other day. Maybe you guys can help me figure out what it's called. My 80-something-year-old patient tells me, "Yeah, my granddaughter, she's 24. She like basically works at Dairy Queen, doesn't have any kids." And they said, brand new house, they just built them, kind of way out in the rural areas, but so they're cheaper. And she says, brand new house, $300,000, and I can't, I don't know if it was the feds or the state, but they were paying 140,000 of it. The only deal was she had to stay there for 5 years. So she gets $160,000 mortgage, and all she had to do was be kind of broke. I'm like, oh, where do I sign up? Like, of course, I wouldn't qualify because I make $80 to $90,000 a year. So um, I don't know about that, but have you guys heard about that? Does that ring a bell?
Not federally.
No,
There are
it'd be a
different
state
state
thing then.
programs. Not to that degree that I know of. In Maryland, there's several first time buyer programs, but they typically assist with minimum down payment. We're
Yeah,
talking about
not
just
half.
no.
Well,
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
So
there have been mortgage modifications that have taken a
Oh,
third of
sure.
the
Sure.
mortgage balance.
yeah.
And,
Yeah, that's after they're in the house already. I mean, there's the good neighbor next door, which used to be called the officer teacher next door program. If you were a police officer or teacher, there was a HUD program. There is a HUD program. They're basically FHA foreclosures for the most part, and they designate certain homes for officers and teachers where they can purchase the home at 50% of the as-is value. Most of these homes need a renovation, so they wind up having to do a renovation loan. But if you keep the house for, I think it's 10 years, that other 50% is forgiven. I mean, those are unique programs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's something that she
We've
would
gotta
have done.
Expand
But
that to nurses and firefighters. I might be
yeah,
unlocked.
yeah.
Joe, can you pull that down a little bit? All right, buddy. Well, look, it's been great chatting with you. Thanks for
Thank you.
calling in. We really appreciate you, and God bless you,
Appreciate it,
man.
guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
So we're talking about, home price appreciation. Can you do something, Joe, to not have our faces over there? We go. Thanks. This is really what we're looking at here is something that has happened over the last, 10 years. You can see home prices. This is new home construction, but you could see what happened in 2020. I mean, it's skyrocketed. We didn't see home price appreciation like this ever. This is the biggest bubble we've ever seen post World War II. But you could see where it is now. I mean, there's no question that it's been in some turbulence since 2022. Guys, what I want to pull this slide up for, because I want you to understand something. Builders have been doing rate buy downs for quite some time. And when we're talking about mortgage rates, and that's I want to get into a little bit more with you, Stuart, now. When we're looking at mortgage rates and people saying that, hey, mortgage rates are coming down, it did nothing for prices. They're buying down, locking in mortgage rates for 5.5% for fixed rates for 30 years. A lot of these builders.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we do that. There's spec locks. So what we do is we have builders that we work with, and the builder will take. So oftentimes builders build incentives into the price of their homes. So they may be giving buyers as an incentive to purchase these new construction homes, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 in incentives. The buyer can use those incentives towards upgrades. Maybe they want nicer countertops and cabinets, or they want the basement finished, or they want the deck on the back of the house, and they'll give them these incentives as options for upgrades, or they'll give them as concessions towards closing costs. And now what they're doing with rates where they are or where they've been, they're doing buy downs, not temporary buy downs. I'm talking about permanent buy downs. So if the rate, for example, if the going rate is 6.5%, they're going to buy the rate down to 5%, 1.5% lower than market, and use some of those concessions to incentivize buyers for getting in with an already locked in rate below market. It's a great marketing tool. It actually does help affordability. So the person that is, maybe they can afford at current market rates, they can afford a $350,000 house. But the fact that the builder has locked in and done a spec lock on that property for 1.5% lower than market, they can afford a $400,000 home. So it actually, I'm a fan of that as an option.
What do you think? Why do you think the prices are still declining? I mean, they had these low buy downs at the height of the market when we saw mortgage rates tipping 8%, and yet builders had the worst October in history in 2023. In the midst of all of that, no inventory, they have all the inventory. How do you explain prices still dropping despite interest rates being much lower than anybody could get anywhere else?
Well, it doesn't solve the problem. It's still an affordability issue. I mean, home prices are still up, right? So even though they've come down a little bit, as you just demonstrated in the graph you just showed, I mean, home prices are still up. So there's still the affordability issue. And eventually we run out of buyers that can qualify. I mean, our gentleman that we just talked to.
Let's pull that chart back up a second, Joe. And let's take a look at this, because when, I was talking about when Harry Dent was in our video that we did with Harry Dent, and I'm not saying that I think home prices are going to crash 50, 70, 80%. But one of the things that Harry had said was that, he was really referring to home prices going back to 2019. When we had the great financial crisis in 2008, home prices went back to 2003 prices. So they actually went back, 3%, right? So when we look at this slide here, if we were to go back 5 years and be somewhere in that 2019 price, we'd really be about 330,000, where right now we're 410,000.
That would be a big shift.
That's a big shift. That's if prices just went back 5 years. If we had a price recession where we went back 5 years, this is where we'd be.
What would have to happen? What would trigger that to happen, though? That's the big question. In 2000, you asked me about cash out refinances, and am I seeing a lot of people consolidating their credit card debt and taking the equity that they've built up the last 4 years and now converting that equity into cash out refinancing and paying off debt and sustaining themselves that way? In 2006, so I pulled up some data. In 2006, 485 billion was extracted of equity in homeownership in our country. So far this year, we've got 25 billion. So that if you annualize that, that would be 1/10 of what was extracted just in 2006. Forget about 5, 4, 3. People were extracting, as home values were going up from 2001 all the way up to the crash in 2008.
Mm-hmm. Well, probably the last
every year people were extracting equity.
Right.
That's one thing that we're not, and maybe it has to do with the fact that rates are high and people don't want to cash out refi from a 3% rate to a 6 or 7% rate. That may have a lot to do with it. If we see rates coming down more, we might see more cash out refinancing. That to me would be a sign there's trouble.
Mm-hmm. Well, you probably have at least 15 million houses that were bought probably overvalued.
Mm-hmm.
So really, if you look at, the implications of just the last 3 years of home buying alone, 4 years of home buying, and look at who was buying those houses, job loss is all it would take. I mean, you could talk about the equity in the house. The problem is you can't afford the payment. You can't afford the payment. And then if we see inventory go up, the competition, and we see buyer demand decline, which we've clearly seen. I just showed you 30 to 40% of the houses that are on the market in our area alone have had at least one price decline. We're up over 2019 inventory. We're at 2000 pre-pandemic home inventory right now, right? We saw the tightest inventory through the pandemic. Days on the market were hours. I mean, it wasn't days on the market, it was hours on the market. They were going under contract the same day they were hitting the market. People were writing offers sight unseen. They were buying it from other states and moving. They just took the pictures from online. They said, well, I can't get a home inspection anyway, so I don't even need to go see it. I'm just going to buy it. People were doing, the exuberance was through the roof. So what we haven't seen because of this stimulus, the massive stimulus, over 1 million people have been saved of foreclosure alone and have taken advantage of loan modifications. We didn't have that in 2006. Mm-hmm. So what we've done is we've extended it to protect the equity that's out there. We don't even know if it's equity. We're guessing. Out of the 1 million people that were rescued in loan modifications, what's the condition of their house? We don't know. Not part of the loan modification was sending an appraiser back in the house to say, has this house declined? Has the quality of this house, has the living standard of this house declined? Is it habitable? Is it safe? Is there mold growing? Is the roof leaking? As we see in many of the few foreclosures that we've witnessed. So what would take this event and kick it into gear would be that we start seeing more job loss like we have been.
That's fair.
I mean,
Yeah.
You get two borrowers that are borrowing in most cases, right? And they're borrowing at the top of the limit. How many months of job loss does it take with zero money in the bank before you're behind? What's the biggest struggles you're seeing right now with the borrowers that are out there?
First-time buyers, it's cash, money for down payment. Outside of that, I would say that the non-first-time buyers, the step-up buyers, or even the downsizing buyers, it's the contingency of having to sell. It's still lack of inventory in some cases. In a lot of markets that I work, there's still a lack of inventory versus demand, which is scary that that's still the case. But that's still the case in a lot of areas where I do a lot of business. But I will say that there's a lot of folks that have to be contingent. I've got some folks that are retiring, that are looking to downsize, but they have to sell. And
why would they need a loan if they have all this equity?
They want to purchase before they sell, and they can't. If they can pay the loan off. I mean, I have got a lot of folks that say, once I sell, I'm going to pay the mortgage off, but I need to purchase before I sell. And that's it. It's the chicken and the egg.
These downsizers, where are they going?
They are, geographically, they're not, a lot of them aren't they're just looking to downsize to townhomes, condos, just more manageable properties than what they have. They want to get out of the single family home where they have to spend their entire weekend taking care of their property, mowing the grass, and just want to simplify.
Somebody said the egg came first, bud.
Sure it did.
All right, man.
That would be logical.
Huh?
That would be logical.
That would be logical. All right, let's see what we got here. Good question. How many people, Jordan, are still buying? Now, here comes the real honest question.
Okay. I'll give you an honest answer.
How are sales?
Slow the last. Well, actually, I had a great August, July. So it's wavy. It's up and down. July, personally, and this is my small world that I live in. July was very slow. August just had a wave of purchases that just came out of nowhere. One weekend, I think I got 6 or 7 contracts. Folks that I had pre-qualified for quite a while, and they just kind of all came together all of a sudden. I do sense that things are slow right now at the moment, and the easy explanation for that is that folks are waiting to see what happens with the election, and they're anticipating the Fed and the Fed's next move. The Fed is basically all but said they're going to reduce the Fed funds rate 0.5% in September, which we're in September now at the next meeting. The market is expecting that. The market has already priced that. That's why you saw mortgage rates drop about 0.5% over the last few weeks. So the market is already anticipating that. There will probably be 1 or 2 more rate cuts before the end of the year. That would be in line with what historically typically has happened in election years. So we may see interest rates drop even further by the end of the year, maybe another 0.5% from where they are now. Maybe, maybe not. These are all just my predictions. I think that people really are waiting to see what happens with the election. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I think it's just going to be wavy going into 2025. If you look at the Mortgage Bankers Association, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the National Association of Realtors, there's a positive outlook for real estate for 2025 and beyond. In terms of number of home sales, price appreciation, modest price appreciation. I don't know. If I had,
I mean, let's face it, they're not predicting mortgage rates to drop below 5.5% in 2026 till, they think that they'll be at 5.5% by 2026. I mean, that's several years, unless we see rates go, south of 4%, the home prices are not going to appreciate. This is all a game. Mm-hmm. It's a game. A house is a non-fungible product. You can't sit two houses unless they're built exactly like on the same exact lot of value. You can't put two houses next to each other and call the price the price. You have to take so much into consideration. We already know that the appraisers basically get whatever the house sells for the most part. I don't know how they do that, but it always seems to appraise, even when you're really considering whether it should or not. They work for the banks. Banks don't make money if they don't lend money. So it's amazing how they continue to make that happen. But I'm not as optimistic. I have a great video of Lawrence Yun. He's the chief economist over at the National Association of Realtors. I had the privilege of interviewing him. The look on his face 5 minutes into the interview was like, I cannot believe I accepted this guy's invite to interview. You guys can check that out on our website. It was a couple years ago as we were coming into this, and where he's flat out said that home prices weren't going to decline, and they have. So how they're continually saying that they're going to go up when they're clearly dropping is just laughable almost to me. There you go. The Fed's plan. This was 2 years ago. You guys should watch it. Just watch the first 10 minutes of it. And the look on his face is like, shit, what did I get myself into? And, I thought maybe he would just disconnect or hang up on me, but he didn't. He was a great sport. But, I mean, it again, seeing what has, kind of transpired over the last year with NAR, I think this is going to be something that we're going to identify as one of the biggest mistakes the Federal Reserve has ever done, and that allow this asset class to inflate to the price. And now they're just looking for all the reasons in the world to support that vertical spike in home prices that no one can afford. So, but anyway, we'll see. Stuart's actually a good buddy of mine. I'm just challenging him tonight, giving him a hard time, but he really is amazing. And like I said, we wouldn't be affiliated together. We wouldn't even have him if we didn't think he did a great job. So if you guys need a loan, check Stuart out. His links are in the show note below. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. It's always it's past my bedtime with a couple of these and the exciting conversation. I'm able to stay up way past my bedtime. Thank you.
Man, you know what? Those Celsius drinks do it every time, don't they? All right, buddy.
They work.
All right, guys, we love you. We appreciate you. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, think about doing so now. There's Stuart right there on Sachs Realty. We have no problem in telling you, if you're looking for a loan, reach out to Stuart. He really is a good guy, honest guy. And, he's a straight shooter. So when I have some fun, poke at him a little bit, it's just, that. And not everybody's the same. And you can't treat all realtors equal. And you certainly can't treat all lenders equal. But we love you guys. We appreciate you spending your Tuesday night with us. Do us a favor, share us with your family and friends. Let's continue to build this amazing online community that we seem to have, that I get up every day for. So thanks, Stuart.
Todd, thank you, buddy.
All right.
Great night.
We'll see you next time.